So now let's welcome our next panel, driving our electric future, automakers on the path forward. Please welcome Brett Hauser, Voltera, Chris Brown, Harbinger, Tom Van Heeke, Rivian, and Alycia, Gilde, LA County Internal Services Department. Please welcome everyone.
Good afternoon. I'm Brett Hauser, CEO of Voltera. We're here to talk about the road to 2028. For years, that road was just a PowerPoint presentation, bold in ideas, but offering limited details on execution. Well, it's December 2025. The Olympics are less than 950 days away. Are we going to hit our targets? To break it down and discuss, I've got the best in the business. Tom, I'm going to put you on the spot first. Rivian is still pushing hard despite headlines we're seeing about slowing EV demand. But the policy ground underneath us is also shaky. We've got 30D tax credits in limbo and tariffs moving around. Here's my question. How much of Rivian's 26 plan and beyond relies on federal incentives to come back around? Are we building a business that can stand on its own 2 feet, or are the training wheels still essential?
Thanks for the question, Brett. And let me just say thank you to Alycia for organizing such an incredible gathering of leaders here. This has been a really impressive day. I'm sorry I missed yesterday. Look, Rivian is building a business around the undeniable technological end state for our industry, EVs, and we're building that business for the long term. And that is true no matter what the policy landscape is. And part of that means that we're investing right now in our next vehicle, the R2. This is a mass market product that's going to come in at a lower price point than what we've been offering so far to the consumer. And that, I think, is going to enable more customers to say yes to Rivian. At the same time, it's true that people respond to incentives, whether that's for reasons of affordability, an appetite for risk, or simply because when the government gives an incentive, it sort of validates a purchase decision. And so for all of those reasons, we are still saying, especially here in California, that there is an opportunity to sustain the industry's momentum with a rebate that faces the consumer here in the state. And so we are taking the chance now to explain that position to the administration, to the legislature, and advocate for a redoubled commitment to purchase incentives for the customer here in California that we think can help slingshot the industry through this moment and into the future, and double down on this state's legacy, which is, frankly, bringing the EV to the world. California can and should continue to lead on that and do so through its public policies. Hopefully that helps answer your question.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. Thank you. But pivoting away from the consumer market a little bit, Chris, this is for you. I mean, Harbinger just announced a huge order from FedEx, $160 million raise. Congratulations for that, by the way. That's no small fee, right? Is the commercial sector essentially decoupled from consumers? Do you worry that if the consumer market catches a cold, the commercial supply chain is also at risk?
I do not. So the thing is, the commercial EV market is oftentimes driven by more of a visceral impact on what that vehicle means to you. Commercial industry oftentimes have corporations and fleet managers who are looking at fleet economics. We often use terms like total cost of ownership, which I want to kind of pull away from a little bit as well. When we talk about incentives, we are talking oftentimes about how the state can support the sale of an electric vehicle. On the consumer side, it's your playground. It makes perfect sense when you're talking about individual purchasers. My personal opinion on the commercial side is that total cost of ownership is an academic exercise. When a fleet owner opens up their checking account and buys a truck, they're not worrying about whether or not it's going to make sense 3 years from now. They don't know where they're going to be 3 years from now. They want the truck to make sense today. And so our supply chain, especially at Harbinger, and the reason why we have been a success, we haven't fallen by the wayside, unfortunately, like Bollinger, we haven't had the dips like we no longer have the bright drop, is because we are largely vertically integrated. Our EDU, our tank winding system, our battery packs, thermal units are all built in California. Our battery cells, Panasonic, were envisioned for their plant to open in DeSoto, Kansas. We are at price parity with diesel because we're purpose-built to weather any economy with any administration.
I mean, I think we need to just take a moment and breathe that in. Cost parity. diesel.
Yes.
That was always the thing. No one, I mean, that's profound and a significant feat. Alycia, to you. County of Los Angeles has committed to aggressive climate goals in the region that include transitioning its fleet to zero emissions by 2045. How is the county preparing for this transition to zero emissions? What are some of the challenges to meet deadlines? And what are the possible solutions to make your commitment a reality?
Thank you, Brett, and it's great to be on this panel with all of you and to be amongst friends that are all a part of this community and new friends that I get to meet. I will say it's an interesting opportunity that I've come into. Recently have left the Department of Energy and have joined the county, and coming from a national perspective to now down to a local perspective where I can wrap my arms around the county and look at the climate impact that I can make. In my role, I'm not only responsible for decarbonizing transportation, but also our buildings. And so I've got a lot of work cut out for me, but I believe we have the partners, we have the technologies, we have the energy solutions, and we have the plan to move it forward. We do have a ZEV Mobility Action Plan. So prior to my joining, the team had ICF conduct an analysis, a fleet analysis, looking at the total number of vehicles that we would be responsible for transitioning to zero, light duty, medium, and heavy duty. And what's really important to remember is that local government fleets have to meet the Advanced Clean Fleet Rule. And I think this is really important. We want to meet this regulation. It's important not only for our commitment to sustainability, but for the future of California. And so certainly LA County wants to be a role model, and we want to be a beacon of light on how we can make this transition. Our challenges, though, the capital cost of transitioning to zero. The cost of vehicles are still a little expensive. And so definitely we want to see more technologies emerge that can be at cost parity. That is why it's so important that we continue to build this marketplace. But having dedicated investments to support our local fleets to make the transition is very important. And then for incentive programs that are designed to help us buy down the cost of those vehicles, how might we make some tweaks so that it works for local government? So we have about 6,300 vehicles that we've identified that we want to transition. Almost half of those we need to transition to support the Advanced Clean Fleet Rule. So what we need is a dedicated funding lane for local government so that we can support the timeline that we've built out. And so a part of the ZEV Mobility Action Plan is that we've actually taken the milestone approach for your Class 2B all the way to your Class 8. We have identified exactly how many vehicles that we need to transition or that we're already planning to retire to zero emission, what the cost would be. Let's just say if we were apply to HVIP, which is the state's incentive program for commercial zero emission vehicles, what that would look like. And then by 2028, we're looking at almost wanting to transition 700 vehicles as a part of that timeline goal. So definitely looking at how we can help cover the gap in cost. So we know we can't afford it, all with our budget. You know, we know we have vehicles that we plan to transition out and cover those costs, but what can we do to help bring that gap down? In terms of the incentive program and how we think about supporting local government, especially on those programs that are kind of cash on the hood to make it really easy for that fleet owner to make that transition and not feel the burden of that cost. So for local government, maybe we look at applying for a voucher based on the vehicle class size that we're looking at versus selecting an OEM so that we can go through our procurement process and meet our obligations. Go through the process, select the OEM, and then complete the voucher process. So we're engaging with the state. You know, certainly we see the potential of what we can do here in Los Angeles and the greater Los Angeles County. We have a lot of vehicles that we need to transition. We know that we're not the only ones. So we want to work with other local governments. We really want to champion this strategy to support this transition so that we can successfully meet the Advanced Clean Fleet Rule. Because we see local government as anchor buyers. We can be working with our ZEV manufacturers to know that we're going to help continue building that marketplace for commercial zero-emission vehicles. And I think that's so important for California, but also for the rest of the United States and around the world.
And so today you are working with the local governments, other agencies, to try to figure out how to meet those needs.
Oh, that is my plan.
Okay, great, great. I'm going to skip the next question and go to the one because we've been put on the clock because of the eloquent Mayor Garcetti. We are staring down the barrel of 2028 Olympics. The world is coming to LA. We promised them a zero-emission games. Right now, I want this group to represent the reality. Tom and Chris, if you could change one thing in the process to get charging infrastructure in the ground and energized, whether it be permitting, interconnection, easements, what would it be? What is the one thing slowing you down the most?
You want me to go first?
Sure.
Well, look, let me actually just first start by celebrating what's going well. We should give California the credit it deserves for how it has invested in the EV charging network to date, from funding through programs at the CEC to market-based programs like the LCFS that help marshal private capital into the charging network. California has really supported the growth of charging infrastructure in the state and now boasts more public plugs than gasoline nozzles, in fact. So things are actually going well in that sense. And similarly, we've got a growing policy focus on charger uptime, which has been a challenge for the industry to date. And we're proud to say that networks like ours now deliver 97% uptime or better. And the trends are positive, and we have new reliability regulations, in fact, from the CEC that are going to help drive that standard across the industry. So that's all really good news, and I think we should just take a moment to celebrate that. At the same time, what are the challenges? Well, when I talk to our go-to-market team with the Rivian Adventure Network, which is Rivian's public DCFC network, growing all the time, and ask them, what's holding you guys back? Well, ultimately, it's about transparency and insight into site capacity, and it's that coordination with utilities and across the ecosystem. There are times, and frankly it happens too often for our team, that we get fairly far down along the track procuring real estate, working with a landlord. We've done our due diligence, only to find out somewhat late in the game that actually we're years away from having capacity to energize, or there's a transformer delay. And we need to find a way to solve that problem systematically and across the board if we're going to achieve the kind of scale and deployment timelines that we all hope to achieve. There are some steps in the right direction through things like EPRI's GridFast initiative, through their EVs to Scale program. I think one of the challenges there is it's just not widespread enough. Not enough utilities are participating in that. And so when I talk to our team, that's the thing that they highlight first and foremost. That's what's causing them a problem when they want to get a new site in the ground, is we're trying to grow our network as quickly as we can, because it's now open to the public. Anyone with any EV can use a Rivian charger. We're moving to the NACS standard, both on our vehicles and on our plugs. This is supposed to be part of the fabric of your charging network out in the world when you drive around. It's not just for our customers. And so we want to get that out there as quickly as we can so we can be part of the solution. And that's been kind of a challenge for us.
Yeah, I think predictability and certainty, I mentioned we're less than 950 days away from the Olympics. Everyone is trying to get infrastructure in the ground in time for the Olympics. If we don't have certainty, predictability, when the power is going to be there, then we're not going to be successful. I think that's spot on. Chris.
Sure, I'll collapse what I was going to discuss before with this as well. One of the things that is missing is an adept ability to recognize a need for collaboration and coordination. There are a ton of entities in the state that are responsible for regulation and enforcement, but I think that we need to get creative when it comes to coordinating between OEMs, infrastructure partners, the local utilities, and workforce development. And this is perhaps the business of a coordination between GoBiz and the CPUC. You have to create these pathways where you can get to the project level and coordinate between all the entities that need to actually produce a project to electrify and to deliver vehicles, while coordinating with whoever's buying the fleet, with the fire marshal, understand the local government, educate them, and then couple things like V2G. The reality is that we could just look back, not too many months ago, and we're thinking about half of California is on fire, and then we lost power. And then there are emergency services that could have been alleviated if there were depots that were electrified in coordination with their utilities, if the CPUC had worked to create a logical pathway for emergency services to solve these problems. Coordination, communication, irrespective of competition, is essential to success. At the end of the day, the clean energy climate economy is an ecosystem that operates in a fairly small bubble when you compare it to dinosaur wine. And the fact of the matter is that they've got a head start, but we've got a longer track. And we've got to respect that, and we've got to execute.
Before we get to your question, you mentioned bidirectional charging. I know you are actually doing some work with the CEC here in LA, bidirectional charging.
Yeah.
How is that going? And do you think that's actually going to be able to impact the Olympics?
Yeah, that's a fun question and a great one, timely. Yeah, so Rivian, thanks to the support of the CEC, is working on developing an AC bidirectional charger that will work with any EV, regardless of its brand or model. And we're grateful for that support. And we're doing that in part because VGI is so central to our vision of what the value proposition of EVs are, both for the customer and for the grid. I had to write this down because I was doing the math and I want to make sure I got it right. If you roll up just the EVs on the road in LA County right now, and imagine they could be marshaled as a virtual power plant, we're looking at something on the order of 14 gigawatt hours of dispatchable power just on the EVs that exist on the road in LA today, not even in 2 years' time as we continue to grow the market here in the county. That is a tremendous opportunity. So the question is, how do we marshal that? How do we harness that? The good news is the technology is here. We have bidirectionally capable vehicles right now. The R1 is DC bidi capable. The R2 coming next year will be AC bidi capable. We are building these vehicles with this in mind from day one. And so what's left is developing the standards and the protocols needed to ensure that these vehicles can work with utilities and streamline the interconnection to make these vehicles work as a grid asset for LA, for the region, for the state, and deliver on that vision of being backup power in time for something like the games.
Right. So, can it help us with the games? Or you think we got a little ways to go before that?
I think because of that bottleneck we have around standardization and utility interconnection, we probably do still have a ways to go. But like I said, the good news is it's not a technology shortcoming. The vehicles will be here able to do it. The question is, have we brought everything in line to deliver on that?
Got it. Speaking about bottlenecks, to you, medium and heavy duty vehicles, or is it the depots? If I gave you 1,000 zero-emission commercial vehicles tomorrow, could you even charge them?
I love this question. I will say that it all depends. So I'm very proud our ISD team, I work for the Internal Services Department with LA County. We're responsible for serving all the departments within LA County. So naturally, our vehicle fleets and our buildings are very much a part of that. We have the second largest municipal charging network in the country. I think New York City is the first. We have around 1,800 chargers that are available and mostly available to the public. So how we utilize them to support our fleet deployment needs, there needs to be a strategy for that. However, to support our advancement of commercial zero-emission vehicles, we're going to need a lot more chargers, and we need to be smart about where we're deploying them. One of my new assignments coming onto the team is not only, as I mentioned to you, I'm managing our fleet side, but also our building side, is that we're developing a municipal climate action plan for our buildings. And a part of what I would like to do is looking at how we're strategically deploying our vehicle fleets as we're looking at modernizing our buildings and decarbonizing those buildings and thinking about the energy ecosystem. So you're talking about V2G, V2B. I am really excited about how we're taking an ecosystem approach to how we're decarbonizing transportation and our buildings. We have 5 districts in the county. We serve 10 million people. It is just so important that as we think about advancing technology, that we are taking a holistic and strategic approach. As we're coming close to the Olympics, this is such a great opportunity for collaboration. And my role being responsible for developing public-private partnerships, because yes, we're going to be leaning in on where there's public investment, but private partnerships is also really critical to how we're deploying charging infrastructure, how we're thinking about innovative finance models for deploying commercial zero-emission vehicles. So I really feel like there is such an opportunity for us to siege that will be a template for replication. And I think as we're getting close to the Olympics, I'm really thinking about all of what we do right now that can catalyze and help speed up our momentum, but also be a role model for how we can expand it, replicate it throughout the state of California, replicate it throughout the United States and certainly be a role model as we bring all these nations together for the Olympics.
Yeah, that's so well said. What we do here and how we show up for the Olympics is a template for how the rest of the state and the rest of the U.S. can show up and deliver EV charging infrastructure at scale. And by the way, if you need some depots, I know a company. We should talk. We've got a few minutes left. I want to step back from the daily grind of permits and procurement for a moment. The 2028 games are a deadline, but they aren't the finish line. And this is to the group. As we think about legacy and lasting impact of the 2028 games, what enduring benefits do you hope our work will deliver for the region, and or what commitments are you willing to make? Alycia, why don't we start with you?
So if I close my eyes and I open them up, it feels like it's going to be a blink, and we're going to have the Olympics here. And I'm going to look back on this 2-day event that we've had together to talk about all the things that we want to do and the things that we want to do together. I see success. And when I think about our commitment for LA County and coming in new into this role, and I will say, you all have been with the county for a month, but already I have plans and I have ideas, and I've been talking to so many people, and so I'm really excited about what I can bring to the Olympics and certainly working with all of you. And so first of all, commitment is myself. I completely commit myself to advancing our climate goals for LA County, but where we can be a partner as we're thinking about the energy needs that we need to make sure are in place to support the ZEV services that we're supporting for how we're moving our media, how we're moving our teams, how we're moving the public, how LA County can be a support there, and certainly the infrastructure that we put in the ground and the vehicles that we use to serve the public, making sure that we're accelerating the pace as we're looking at going zero. So, certainly, as I was discussing before, how local government can be anchor buyers, how we can continue to amplify that opportunity so that we can continue to keep the marketplace strong for commercial zero-emission vehicles, but then LA County, how we can really support the energy ecosystem for the Olympics and how we can be a partner with all of you.
Love it. Thank you.
We heard from Mayor Garcetti about sort of the physical legacy that games can leave behind, and that, of course, has traditionally included stadiums and venues. For maybe not quite the first time, but certainly it's going to be one of the first times. This is a games that's going to leave behind an additional physical legacy in the charging infrastructure that's built to support EVs that are going to be used as part of the games. And I think we're going to see more EVs on the road as well in 2028. And so what we have here is an opportunity to create this additional layer of physical lasting legacy that shows to the world, reminds the world of LA and this state's role in bringing that technology to the world in the first place, and in delivering then ultimately the sort of the less tangible benefit of that technology, which is cleaner air. And so I think between the transit investments and all the money that's going to go into supporting electrification of that transit and of the vehicles that are otherwise being used, there's this opportunity to add this extra layer, an exciting new layer of legacy to this games that maybe we haven't seen quite as much in previous ones. So that's what I'm looking forward to seeing as a lasting reminder of what this games has brought.
I think groupthink that is larger than corporate interests is incredibly relevant to actually establish a legacy. I'll give you a quick story. I had a conversation with senior leadership at SoCal Edison last week about V2G, about home charging, about incentives, about what can be done for everyday folks who live in apartments to be able to charge at home without having to buy their own stuff, to upgrade their own panels. It was around the fact that they are programs for apartments with 5 and more tenants, that they could get these extraordinary funds to upgrade panels and to install infrastructure for those tenants. That's awesome. I own a quadplex that is 1 tenant short. I would sure love to be able to electrify for my tenants. How many quadplexes are in the state of California? Probably quite a few. I think we need to focus on practical, logical solutions that focus on human beings. And along the same lines, every single thing that unifies everyone in this room, whether you are a part of the EV community, whether you're an OEM, your infrastructure, your government, it's people. Who is going to build your vehicle? Who is going to repair your vehicle? Who is going to work at the dealers that support your vehicle? It is all about people. We need apprenticeship programs. We need workforce development. We need pipelines to make sure that folks have jobs after these Olympics. So everything that we got here, let's think about everyone that we see when we leave this room. Thank you.
Great. In closing, we started at the beginning by saying that the road to 2028 used to be a PowerPoint. I think we've heard today that the road is real, but it's under construction. It's not just about innovation, it's about alignment. The vehicles, the grid, the workforce, the policy can no longer move at different speeds. If we want to cross the finish line in 2028, the entire ecosystem has to move as one. That is our mission. That is what we must do. Thank you. Thank you.